And now the sermon part of the sermon. She was crazy. Everybody knew it. She clearly talked to herself. She didn't have a home to speak of. She could not make it at the mission. Riding all over town on her bicycle, loaded down with her things. There are people like her everywhere. There's not really much to be done about them. They aren't a danger to themselves or others, but it looks bad, you know? To have those who are a bit off just hanging about, needing a bath, a haircut, clean clothes. We want to put them somewhere. Pay for a hotel, find a way to get them an apartment, whether that is what they want or not. I watched this play out in Mooresville with our friend who usually finds a place on Indiana Street. When I first came, he traveled up and down the street with his wagons, collecting things. He lived in an apartment then. Circumstances changed. He seemed to be without a long-term address for a while. Someone called to see if I could help. I'm the pastor. I asked what he wanted. That man on the street, not the caller. The man that seemed more comfortable away from others, but in a familiar space. The caller didn't know. They hadn't asked him. But Ellen had a story. It was a complicated one and not one that she would share with a casual passerby, a social worker, someone who saw her as a list of problems to solve. She was waiting for the right listener. Theo had no last name. He had come to town where Ellen lived and become entranced by the 92 pencil portraits hanging in the Chalice coffee shop. Don't you love that name for a coffee shop? All painted by the same artist, Asher, all for sale, none had sold. Theo decided that he would buy each one and bestow it, that's the word he used, bestow it on the one he thought the rightful owner, the subject of the portrait. He did a couple, and then he came to Ellen's. He asked the owner of the local bar, Shep, to give the letter inviting her to meet him on a bench at the fountain. She does. And Theo did what Theo does best. He listened. He asked her about herself. He begins by asking her if she has lived in Golden her whole life. That question upsets her. She doesn't want to talk about it. To help calm her, he asked her about the happiest day in her life. And Ellen tells him about the complicated day when her boyfriend William was killed. Her daughter Willa Francesca was born, and the same day her child was taken away from her. Her focus on this best day is on holding her baby. She asked Theo about the spire in the distance, and he assured her that he did on occasion go to St. James. And on Sunday, Ellen showed up with her bicycle, named the Noble Invention, which she insists on taking inside the church so it would be safe. She starts going up the aisle with the bike while the usher is trying to stop her, and she yells, "Your sign says visitors welcome. I'm a visitor, so here I am, and you better keep your hands off me." Can't you see that playing out? On the story goes, with Ellen in all her complexities and delightfulness playing out through the story. Ellen comes alive to us because Theo asks her questions that invite her into view, that helps us see her differently, that validates her. As he gives her the portrait, he tells her that he sees something motherly in her face, particularly the eyes of a mother. Theo gives Ellen a gift that some of us never received, the gift of someone being genuinely interested in hearing her story, in connecting with her beyond the superficial, in knowing her. Our first beloved children's book, this is that sermon series, Beloved Children's Books, was written in 1922. It was 11 years after my grandmother was born, almost 40 years before I was born. Someone shared the book with me in my teenage years. That's when I needed it most. And the story stayed relevant. The Velveteen Rabbit ages well. I would suggest that the closest modern equivalent might be Toy Story. The story is about a stuffed rabbit that is given as a gift to a young boy. The boy has many toys, and he loves the rabbit. The other toys make fun of the rabbit because it isn't real. It doesn't have what they have. It doesn't have moving parts like the crank on the car that makes it go, or the legs that move on the lion that was carved by a veteran. And the rabbit is sad. It's not real. Though he isn't really sure what real is. Isn't that the truth about adolescence and even into our 20s? We want to be something. We just aren't sure what that something is, and there doesn't seem a solid way to know since everyone and everything around us say something different. And Rabbit has Wise Horse for company. Wise Horse tells him, real isn't how you are made. It's a thing that happens to you. When a child loves you for a long, long time, not just to play with, but really loves you, then you become real. Does it hurt? Asked Rabbit. Sometimes, said the Skin Horse, for he was always truthful. When you are real, you don't mind being hurt. Does it happen all at once, like being wound up, he asked, or bit by bit? It doesn't happen all at once, said the Skin Horse. You become. It takes a long time. That's why it doesn't happen often to people who break easily, or have sharp edges, or who have to be carefully kept. Generally, by the time you are real, most of your hair has been lopped off, your eyes drop out, you get loose in the joints and very shabby. Doesn't that describe many of us these days? But these things don't matter at all, because once you are real, you cannot be ugly, except to people who don't understand. Marjorie Williams Bianco wrote The Velveteen Rabbit. The story is fairly short. I highly recommend the audiobook. Meryl Streep reads it, and George Winston provides the musical backdrop. You can guess the ending. The boy loves the rabbit until it loses its hair, its pink ears turn gray, its real fat nose is long gone, and the rabbit becomes real. The thing that these two stories have in common is that someone cared. Someone paid enough attention that Ellen and the rabbit become whole. It reminds me of my favorite Bible story, the story of the hemorrhagic woman, or the woman with the issue of blood. Let's hear that story as told in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 5, verses 25 to 34 in the New Revised Standard Version, the updated edition. Now there was a woman who had been suffering from a flow of blood for 12 years. She had endured much under many physicians and had spent all that she had, and she was no better, but rather grew worse. She had heard about Jesus. She came up behind him in a crowd. She touched his cloak, for she said, if I but touch his cloak, I will be made well. Immediately her flow of blood stopped, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. Immediately aware that power had gone forth from him, Jesus turned about in the crowd and said, who touched my cloak? And his disciples said to him, you see the crowd pressing in on you. How can you say, who touched me? He looked all around to see who had done it, but the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Be healed of your disease. May we seek God's guidance in the hearing, the understanding, and the living into these words. There are so many layers to this story. The woman's agency, seeking help for herself, those who took her money and couldn't help her, the separation she must have felt at being unclean, separated in many ways from the life of her family and community. Today, the focus is the time that Jesus took. The story is sandwiched between two parts of another story. Jairus, one of the leaders of the synagogue, came to Jesus because his 12-year-old daughter is dying, and he believes that Jesus can help. Jesus is on his way to Jairus' house when the story that we read happens. A woman he doesn't know touches his garment. He feels power go out, and he stops. He sets aside for a moment the dying little girl. He sets aside the request from the synagogue leader, a person with some power, and he turns to find the woman. She is terrified. The words it uses are fear and trembling. She knows she's been caught, so she tells him her story. She tells him her truth. And Jesus takes the time to listen. It may have taken a minute. It may have taken 5 5 to 10. It may have taken longer. We don't know. It doesn't tell us. And at the end of it, Jesus calls her daughter. He calls her one of her family. He tells her to go forth, that her faith has made her well. Go in peace, something she has not known in a long, long time. Her faith is what made her risk it all to touch him. Her faith and her fear is what made her share her story. And Jesus handled that as he handles most everything in Scripture, with grace and compassion. For me, these three are all miracle stories. They are all stories about someone separate, someone longing for connection, someone wanting more. And it took someone seeing them for who they were to make that different. I apologize if I'm spoiling the book for anyone who hasn't read it, and I don't know if I could spoil this book. Many of us are reading it for the second or third time. During Theo's time with Ellen, he learns that she is quite well read. They did take away her library card because of overdue fines and lost books. So the local bookshop owner has an agreement with her that she can take 3 books a month from his store for a month at a time. He too has grace with her. She likes to talk about the books that she's read, and she's not reading the easy ones, and she refers to them a good bit. Though she does find it harder to pay attention when someone else is talking. She's an advocate. Where there is a tail feather, there must be a bird. Ellen begins to come to church more regularly, and the community there, at least part of it, enfolds her. They find space for her bicycle. They make space for her in the pew. Ellen is who she has always been. She just blossoms with the attention and affection of a man that connects her more fully to her community. I am certain that her story does not end with a book. She is not now surrounded by people who care for her, who watch out for her as she does for them in her own way. There is a common theme in children's books. There's a common theme in conversation with people who are lonely. There's a common theme in youth, young adults, and the elderly. There is a common theme in those looking at suicide and those struggling with untreated mental illness. Many people feel invisible. They feel like they don't belong unless they change. They may not have a sense of their own value. They may focus on part of their story where they struggle. And in these stories that we read that brighten our day, that give us hope, that show us the way, someone always pays attention. Someone stops. They take the time to really look and listen. We know that rates of suicide go down when children and youth and young adults are connected to even one human with whom they can be honest. None of this is new. Velveteen Rabbit was written in 1922. The Bible was written thousands of years ago, and Theo of Golden was just recently written. But the story is the same. We want to be seen. We want to be loved. We want to be known. This week, I invite you to have a conversation with one person where you ask them an unusual question. Perhaps some of Theo's. What was your happiest day? Where was your most memorable cup of coffee or glass of wine? Tell me about your life, your work, your family. See what gifts of story they are willing to share. It takes practice. Some of you are good at it already. The rest of us will get better with practice. Amen.